Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania Plus has recently been released, and Audrey on Twitter has been amazing in translating a bunch of stuff in it, so in this video let's talk about Aerith. So let's get odd. So definitely check out Audrey on Twitter at itaikimochi. I'll also link to that below in the description. She is a business owner in Japan, she streams on Twitch, and she is a wealth of information. So let's first talk about the yellow flowers. In the book, the question gets asked, Aerith says that the yellow flowers are guiding the way for her, but what exactly does that mean? And co-director of the game, Motomu Toriyama, says, from the time where Aerith first appears in Sector 8, the things she has experienced or thoughts that she has had, things she has lost, have all been represented by the yellow flowers. The people of Midgar stepped on her flowers, and she also gives Cloud a flower when they first meet. Perhaps the flowers even represent a future where flowers can bloom in the planet. However, just like the falling petals, she feels that the whispers are stealing something from her, making her lose something within her that makes her feel lost. Thinking back to that scene in the beginning with Aerith and the yellow flowers, I think it's a scene that can be interpreted a couple of ways for the fans and for the players of the game. I think the character of Aerith in general represents hope. She's very positive and she's very gentle. I mean, she can be an assertive character as well, but I feel like her whole vibe is hope. And I think by extension, the yellow flowers also represent hope. So in the beginning, when she bumps into someone and then she drops the yellow flowers, and then someone walks by and steps on them without so much of an excuse me or sorry, or they don't even stop to help her. I think that for me, that kind of represents that Aerith's hope is always going to be challenged. It's always going to be crushed. There's always going to be forces that try to disrupt Aerith's hope. When she kind of looks up, I think that's her way of saying, you know, there will always be obstacles, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep my hope alive. That was my interpretation from the beginning scene of the game, but definitely let me know your thoughts on that scene, or if you have other interpretations of the character of Aerith or the yellow flowers. The next post is about Aerith and Cloud's resolution scene. So there's a lot of text in this post, but I won't read through all of it. You can either pause the video to read through all of it, or you can look at the original post on Twitter through Audrey's account. I'll kind of highlight the things that I thought were interesting. The first note in this post is it says that Aerith knows this is not a dream. She uses the powers of the Cetra to allow her to come here to see Cloud, and this is not a dream. Cloud does not know what to do. And I thought that was interesting because I assumed that this was a dream. Because how is it possible that Aerith has come home to speak to Cloud when she is currently imprisoned in the Shinra building? And then later in the scene, Cloud kind of wakes up, so I kind of assumed it was a dream, but this note explicitly states that it is not a dream. What's also interesting is this note that says, Aerith turns her head and it seems like she notices something. She looks sad. Cloud follows her line of sight and sees the skies above Sector 7 shining with a green light that almost looks like an aura. It's the souls of those who died from the plate drop returning to the live stream. And that's something that I completely did not notice during my playthroughs of the game. I guess I noticed that they were looking at something, but I didn't put it together that they were looking at the souls of those who had died from the plate drop. And Audrey goes through another post that focuses on this one line. The question in the book says, you can't fall in love with me. Even if you think you have, it's not real. Aerith says these lines, but what exactly was the intent? And Toriyama says, at this point in the game, Aerith is physically locked up in the Shinra building. However, through some type of conscience, she is able to use the livestream to bring forth an Aerith that has memories closest to the future. Her words not only are for Cloud, but she might also be speaking to herself as well. Despite what her words request, perhaps her true heart and thoughts are closed off. So the part where Toriyama says, through some type of conscience, she is able to use the live stream to bring forth an Aerith that has memories closest to the future. That certainly stood out to me, and Audrey even made a comment, excuse me Toriyama, the Aerith we see in chapter 14 is a future Aerith? Well, I guess that makes sense, but it honestly brings up more questions than answers. But going back to the line that Aerith says, it's just one of those things where she's saying this to Cloud, but you gotta think to yourself, who is she trying to convince, Cloud or herself? So this next post doesn't directly involve Aerith, but it is kind of related to Aerith. Jesse's gloves appearing in the ending scene. The question is, in the ending scene where Biggs wakes up, Jesse's bandana and gloves are laid out on the desk. Does this mean she's alive? Toriyama states that, well, we do see Biggs alive in the ending scene since he's physically shown. On the other hand, Jessie is not shown in the ending because we couldn't save her, or that's what you might think. If Biggs' life can be saved by some miracle, then that means other members could be saved too. Perhaps Jessie might also be spared or not. However, an important theme of this story is loss. If all characters you see are able to survive in the future, then perhaps that would be in a different world. I've stated a bunch of times in other videos that an important theme of this game is loss and death, and I made a video called Final Fantasy VII and the Power of Death. I remember reading interviews about how the developers went through all this trouble implementing death in the story. The irreversible death of important, lovable characters in the story, and how that affects you and that affects the different characters in the game. It's an important theme in the game, it's an important theme in life. The last line of this post is interesting because he says, if all characters you see are able to survive in the future, then perhaps that would be in a different world. Perhaps that would also be a different game. He's kind of speaking cryptically, but fans of the game and the players of the game are constantly wondering, is this a direct remake? Is it a one-for-one remake? Are they changing things? Is this a sequel? Some people are completely sure in their conclusions, other people are not so sure. I personally am not sure, but I always remember the impact that the deaths of these really important characters had in the game, but also to me as a player and to the fan base overall. It's hard for me to grasp that any or all of these characters would still be alive, but we'll see. So I also made a video back called, I think it was called, What Did Aerith Show to Marlene? And there's a short comment here. The question is, when Marlene hugged Aerith, it seemed like she saw something. What exactly happened during that scene? Toriyama says, when you come into contact with Aerith, depending on that person's sensitivity, visions start to appear that pass through time and space. Marlene was frightened while in 7th heaven, and as Aerith tried to calm her down, her own frantic thoughts brushed with Marlene. During this, Marlene saw something that she was not supposed to see. As to what exactly she saw, I'll just have to leave it up to the imagination of players at this point. So I really would just like to thank Toriyama for all the clarity regarding that question. Speaking of clarity, there is a short mention of the scene where Tifa asks Aerith to save Marlene. I was just joking about the clarity, there's not much clarity, but there's a short comment. It says Tifa knows that she never talked about Marlene to Aerith, so for a moment she is very surprised. Aerith looks at her with sharp eyes and smiles gently. Tifa is slightly confused, but Aerith's expression gives her strength and she readies herself to go forth. Tifa thinks it's strange that Aerith knew about Marlene even before she explained the situation to her. So the next post deals with the scene where Aerith lets out that she knows that Cloud is a merc. Question: when Cloud and Aerith are talking in the church, visions of some apparition appear. Did something trigger these visions? Toriyama says that the materia wrapped in Aerith's hair that her mother gave her was the catalyst for these visions. What Cloud saw was a scene that symbolizes what may happen to them in the future. Question: when Aerith said to Cloud that he was a mercenary, it's written like it was a slip of the tongue. How does Aerith know that Cloud is a merc? Toriyama says that this is made clear in chapter 17 as Aerith has a lot of various memories that allow her to know many things, but she tries not to make this known to those around her. However, one of the memories allowed her to know for some reason that Cloud was a merc, and she accidentally let that line slip. Some of the whispers in the story are trying to steal away the memories that Aerith has within her. So that's another thing that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, that Aerith has various memories within her that allow her to know many things. She has memories of the past, the present, the future. It's probably an element of the mysterious power of the Cetra, and this post also reveals that the whispers in the story are trying to steal away the memories that Aerith has within her, probably to make sure that she does not change the timeline. So I don't know how it's possible for her to have memories of the future. Maybe that's something that will be made clear eventually, or maybe it's something that will never be made clear. So I don't know about you, but I'm constantly learning new things about not only the remake but the original game, and the more I learn, the more I can appreciate both games. But some things might be left mysterious and some things might be left to interpretation, and that's fine by me. But I think the beauty of this game is that it is kind of a complicated story with emotionally complex characters. It's nice to get clarification on some things, but I don't think every single detail needs to be clarified. I think part of the allure of the game is the mystery of it. So definitely let me know your thoughts or comments on any of these posts. Audrey mentioned that she will be doing some translations from Final Fantasy VII Remake, Trace of Two Pasts, written by Kazushige Nojima, who has written a bunch of Final Fantasy works. Thanks for watching. I really hope you liked this video, and consider subscribing if you want to see more Final Fantasy VII Remake content. Stay odd and keep on playing.